And welcome back once again to our fifth and final session of today's EIT Manufacturing Summit 2020, the very first one. You are here and you're taking part. We're very glad to have you all with us. Our fifth session is called Green and Resilient Manufacturing for Europe's Prosperity. And obviously with the new policy packages like the EU Green Deal or the new industrial strategy, Europe is aiming to become greener and more resilient. So these are two overarching themes that will be defining business development really in the coming years across all sectors. So for EU manufacturing, that means 2.1 million enterprises and more than 30 million employees, as we heard, that need to transform. There's a huge transformation at stake and already in the works, but it is a huge challenge to keep it going at the pace that it needs to continue. So after the interventions we heard earlier on the innovation potential of startups, it is time for our panel discussion, which we had announced, and we'll look at how manufacturing can benefit from the collaboration of these different cultures. So industry heavyweights versus startups, big companies versus smaller, to see how they can interact and benefit one another. So I'd like to introduce our panelists for this morning. There are four of them. We'll bring them onto the screen. Daria Tatai is founder and CEO of Tatai Innovation, which works with CEOs to help strengthen remote teams, connect talent, and innovate through the strategic use of networks. And she's an expert on how to optimize those networks. Welcome to you, Daria. She's joining us from Poland this morning. Thomas Hahn is Chief Expert Software at Siemens AG Germany, and he's been with the company since 1986 in many different positions in the area of manufacturing. He's also a member of the steering committee of Plattformindustrie 4.0, which is shaping the digital transformation of manufacturing across Europe and with multiple international cooperations. Welcome, Thomas, coming to us from Bavaria. And Caroline Albert is co-founder and commercial CEO at Nebumind. That's a startup that's also based in Bavaria that makes production data visible with the aim of improving manufacturing processes. It's also was nominated at the EIT Awards in 2020 in the category Women, Entrepreneurship and Leadership. So congratulations on that nomination to you, Caroline, and welcome. And finally, last but not least, is Maurizio Gattiglio, who's Executive Vice President at Prima Electro. That's the component division of Prima Industrie, which is a leading engineering corporation operating worldwide in the field of industrial lasers and sheet metal machinery, etc. He's also board director and a past chairman of the European Factories of the Future Research Association, short EFRA. So thanks very much to you for joining us, Maurizio, also coming to us from Italy. Thanks for everyone for being here, and let's get some concrete insights into these concepts, obviously greening and resilience. And we'll start with greening because you're all coming from different perspectives. I'd like to start by identifying what you see as priority actions to make Europe's green transition actually happen in the manufacturing sphere. Maurizio Gattiglio, let's start with you.
Okay, thanks a lot for inviting me here, and so I'm very glad, and I think it will be a very nice and useful panel. So I just would like to start to be a little bit more provocative. Green transition is clearly a big opportunity. All we speak about this in nowadays, and all the public sectors, all the newspapers are speaking about this. But meanwhile, is also clearly a big challenge. Sometimes I have the impression that in Europe we are convinced that this transition will happen just because it's ethic and politically correct. My opinion is that is not enough. Green transition must also become a strategic goal to increase competitiveness of the European enterprise. Otherwise, the risk is that the market will not create the success of this, because we still have to consider that we are living in a very critical moment, a very competitive moment, where we have on one side China, the big tiger which woke up again and which is actively approaching the worldwide markets, sometimes with commoditization approaches. And on the other side, we have the big giants in the US with a monopolistic approach. We should not be squeezed in the middle. To have this happening, the opinion that we have also developed within EFRA and the Manufacture technology platform is that first we need a strong political support to this green transition for financing the research activities needed for the transformation, for the products and the process. And this should be done in strong cooperation among industries, research technology organizations, and universities. But even more important, we need to create the right environment and to create a strong support to this evolution. We proposed in SDK Sustainable meeting beginning of the year the introduction of standards, labels, or even a marking, a sort of CE mark, which stands not only for Conformité Européenne, for European conformity, but also can mean circular economy. A sign which can grant the consumer that the products they are purchasing is designed, manufactured, and served within the so-called 16 principle of circular economy. For example, to guarantee that the goods that they are buying are repairable and are granted for a long life and will not just die after that the legal warranty will expire. Finally, I think that the long life eco-friendly products are crucial for the future of the green economy and of the planet, because 80% of the environmental impact is defined during the design and process development phase. Just to conclude, I can say that manufacturing is crucial for the success of green transition because it can grant that the process are done respecting the environment, and clearly only proximity manufacturing can be green. We cannot imagine that we can have green manufacturing done on the other side of the planet than importing goods. So for all these reasons, I think we have a huge challenge in front of us. Thank you.
Obviously huge challenges. Thank you very much, Maurizio Gattilio, for bringing in that rather provocative note. Obviously strong political support, and that this needs to be a strategic goal with Europe forging its own path. Daria Tatai, I'd like to come over to you and ask from a systems network perspective, obviously, how do you see this transformation happening?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. We need to understand that whether we like it or not, transformation is not an option, it's an opportunity. I mean new growth models, new value chains, new ways of work, something that makes our future simply better. We should understand that the systems have not worked. And when I say a system, it means the interrelation between business, technology, and society. I would say it was an opportunity, and it was the time when the EIT, European Institute of Innovation and Technology, was born. 2 years later, the first 3 KICs were launched. Today, the EIT manufacturing is in the family of KICs, and we know how they have been experimenting with driving the system transformation. So in my book, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, a Growth Model for Europe Beyond the Crisis, I looked at the model of the EIT and the KICs, the knowledge triangle model. But I believe that a triangle is something extremely stable, like a table on 3 legs. Nothing can move it. It will always stand still. I think that the KICs as partnerships of large industry, small companies, research labs, universities, governments are foremost a network. And any network is a system, is an interconnected, ever-changing system. And we need to understand that to transform the system in the long term, first, we need to protect the most vulnerable industries, jobs, people, to prevent the big unnecessary externalities, the implosion of social systems, of political systems. We need to be conscious that this is the risk. In the midterm, we need to prepare European manufacturing, European industry for a better short-term absorption of risks and better resilience. But really why the KICs were set up is to transform the system for the long term. And this is all about changing a mindset.
Okay, many thanks. I'm happy to be part of this panel, pleasure. You introduced me also as a member of the German Platform Industry 4.0, but it's not only the German Platform Industry 4.0, we have in the European context and in the worldwide context relationships, and coming back also to Maurizio's or Daria's word, to create impact. That's not see it as a must in doing this, more seeing it as opportunity, also business opportunity. We are regarding the technology requested from around the world. So we are seen from outside as that we can be the driver for this technologies. Some of these are mentioned, use of green, circular economy, and all the topics. That's what we are setting up in the Platform Industry 4.0, and maybe to give you some kind of look inside how we are doing this and how we are addressing this aspect about green, resilient manufacturing, circular economy. We have filed in the Platform Industry 4.0 some kind of vision, and the vision is autonomy, which is of course on the one side, all this with the sovereignty aspects. The other vision is because you have to look regarding how the things, the assets, the machines, the plants are working together, and how you can digitalize this is more into interoperability. And important, we have also set up something around sustainability, and that's exactly where we are targeting inside and how we are bringing this together. This is somehow the vision, and is of course on the top priority. And to be honest, and I'm coming back to Maurizio's words, maybe he phrased it as provocative, but coming back to this give us also some kind of competitive advantage. The question is more how we are doing this then. We just filed as Platform Industry 4.0 2 weeks ago and paper regarding this. What does it mean? We have established a sustainability task force and. So we are touching this. We are touching this not alone. And we are touching this with a network of companies, with research institutes. Meaning in the Platform Industry 4.0, we have excluded this in our vision. One of the 3 pillars, we included this in the processes. We set up task forces, and what we want to achieve really to get benefit out of this. And I'm very sure it could be also an benefit for us doing this and let's say providing this throughout. On the other way, we are also asked around the world what we are doing and how we are doing this, meaning we can use this also to target this. So that's, let's say, where we are requested from outside the world, where we can really not to see it as a must do, to see it more we can do and we should do with this. This is, of course, when I just looking in the aspects, because I'm representing also here a company, for sure we have in our factories around the world is also a benefit, to reduce the consumption of energy or material or something else, but also as a company who are selling product to customers which are handling production systems in the automotive area, in pharmaceutical or process industry area, and that's really an advantage which we can do.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering if you can sort of focus more on where it is that Europe needs to improve on this green transition.
Yeah.
But just briefly, because then I want to come to Caroline Albert.
Okay, what can proof? I think we can build on. Where we can have proof really is in the rollout. We have when you're looking at I think from the manufacturing perspective, we have a lot of domain. We are the world market leader in different domains. So we have the domain knowledge, we have the knowledge about this, we have also the excellent research. We have the network between companies, small and big one. We have the network to startups. I think Caroline will address this later. I think we have the network. What we can really to improve it, we have to look out, and that's the reason why I stressed it a little bit from the platform. Let's say institutes like the EIT with the KICS can be a benefit, but really we have to look how we broaden this, scaling this up, bringing this to the different companies inside Europe. And you must be aware that no one asked me, I think 80% of the economy is covered in the manufacturing area, is covered from small and medium-sized companies. So really, where we have to look out this, how we get the rollout, how we get this scaling up, and so on. Domain perspective, I think we have. Rollout is an important topic.
Rollout and scaling up. Thank you very much for coming back to that point. Now, Caroline Albert, I'd like to finish our tour de table with Europe be in the driver's seat on this transformation, seeing as
me. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. At first, I can agree with Daria, Thomas, and Mauricio. I think it's an opportunity, but we have to grab it and test it. It's actually what means to be in a driver's seat. Means having the courage to be at the front, to try something new. Sometimes I feel like Europe has forgotten a bit about such courage when it comes to disruptive innovations. Just look at the car manufacturers. If you think of back a few years, no one took companies like Tesla seriously. They were just like outside and do not feel comfortable with. And inventions out there, but European companies find it difficult to test them, to fail, to learn, and to move on.
They develop software that visualizes production data as digital production twins. Can you?
Well, in fact, our software has a lot to do with supporting innovations in production environments. Our software collects all kind of production data and generates such digital product twins for every manufactured component. So making fully transparent what happened to a component across the whole production chain. Now, instead of going through huge Excel files and time graphs, listing production data like machine speed and temperature, you have it all in one. So visualized intuitively in a digital twin of your product. And this simple and easy visualization, our software can make manufacturing greener. On one hand, we help manufacturers reduce defects, so reduce production waste, save additional energy and resources, and reduce CO2 emissions. And on the other hand, we support manufacturers to test new things, see the effect immediately, and then innovate much faster.
Thank you very much for just illuminating us on what it is that you're doing. And a reminder to the audience to post your questions. I actually have one here already that is to be addressed to all of you. So let's just see. It concerns obviously what Maurizio was saying at the beginning of creating the right environment. Who would like to, perhaps Maurizio, I can come back to you on that.
Okay, well, sure. For sure. Education is a very important part of the game. But I would like to point out something that I judge crucial. The problems that are today on the table are which have caused all the problems of decrease of GDP has not been generated just by the COVID crisis. I have already spoken about the war in place between China and the United States. In Europe, we had as the goal of Horizon 2020, 20% of European GDP coming from manufacturing. We have to say we failed on that because it's only quote unquote 14%, although it's still employing 33 million European citizens in this. What is important in this moment is we said, to be resilient. So to have the capacity to quickly react to the changes. And already Thomas said that we need autonomy, and autonomy means leadership. And we need leadership in the most modern technology, which allows to be resilient. So I speak about digital, where we have lost the game of B2C, but maybe in Europe we can still play an important role in B2B, including artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, last generation photonics, quantum technology, bio-based technology. We have to say we are under attack. I work in the field of industrial photonics, and while some years ago European were leading this sector, today's the attacks is coming on one side from very cheap products coming from China, and the other side on monopolistic approach from the US. So we have to react on that, and to do this, I again quoted what Caroline said about the courage of disruptive technology. I fully support these statements. We have to create an environment where new ideas can grow. It is not the case that Amazon, Google, Tesla, Facebook grow up in the US. And this involves strongly the financial systems. We need in Europe more business angels, more venture capitalists, and the public role in this change is fundamental. In US, people invest all the money they save. In Europe, people is putting the money in the bank account to be used in case of problems. So we have to change this mindset as the other.
Thanks
coming to
much.
the question, education, we can come to education role, which is crucial later on.
Yes, we will come to that later on, because what I'd like to do, Maurizio, is pick up on your point about resilience. Obviously, you've described very well the very challenging global geopolitical situation that we have also, which is affecting all industries. But I'd like to come to Daria Tataibi and pick up on this theme of resilience, which is another one that we wanted to look at. Obviously, green resilience. What does this actually mean for manufacturing for you?
So the first thing that comes to my mind for resilience is about material resilience, but I would like to focus on process resilience and connect it somehow with what we talked a moment ago about the complex system transformation. And we work with large industry, with small companies, with universities and governments, and we see that every sector in its own silos tries to develop new adaptation strategies for the current crisis, for the current crisis and for the post-corona world. And what we see is that really there are different strategies, but I would like to talk about one of them. It's a partnership strategy. And a partnership strategy, it's actually about having a capacity to connect with your ecosystem and to understanding what is the purpose network fit. So what kind of networks, what kind of partners? You need to build trust-based relations just in case something unexpected happens, because the long-term planning does not bring the results that it used to when we could all plan linear processes. Looking to what extent the global value chains were disrupted, which was absolutely unexpected a couple of months ago, we need to understand that building the ecosystem for bringing back manufacturing to Europe, for nearshoring, for building the capacity of the small and mid-sized companies, manufacturing companies, to work as networks. And we can look to China, how excellently they have managed to build those networking capacity so that as small SMEs can compete on some projects and collaborate on other projects. I believe that this kind of culture of collaboration, of competition is rather absent. So if we speak about resilience, for me, it's about the concept that I've been working for quite some time about the network intelligence. So understanding who are and who will be the key communities for you to develop your relationships, and who are the right people in these communities who are aligned to your values, to your bigger purpose, and who have the skills to influence and to mobilize others to drive this transformation, the leadership, as Caroline said.
Okay, thank you. Leadership brought up by Caroline and by Maurizio. And thanks very much for describing this network picture that you have. I'd like to pick up on the word collaboration, obviously, because we were talking earlier today about this idea of collaboration between larger corporations, larger manufacturing companies with startups to leverage innovation. And Thomas Hahn, I know that Siemens is doing this. As Daria has just said, she feels this culture of collaboration is absent, but Siemens is definitely moving quite a leader of the pack in that sense. How has Siemens benefited quite concretely from working with startups? Can you tell us?
Yeah, first of all, I have maybe a little bit to make some controversy to Daria's statement regarding that there's not some kind of collaboration also between competitors. I can tell you from my experience, there's a lot of ongoing, but there must be business impact for them, what they're doing. I think this is going, and this is also including big companies, but also small and startups, as a general remark. And I think Maurizio touched also a little bit in the beginning regarding this public and private topic, also public side government to support this. I think there's something ongoing, and also a mind shift also from the, I can tell this from the big companies. Now you're coming back to your specific question. As Siemens, you know, we set it up between the classical elements which you have, like venture capital, also an initiative called Next 47, where we're really bringing startups community together with us, but also with others. Think about my words back. So we installed instruments not only from the financial perspective, but also from the collaboration perspective. Let's phrase this. And I'm not sure if Caroline, I think you know this very well. And I imagine you know also the other initiatives like Unternehmertum, also from the TU Munich, for example. I wanted to say there's a lot of ongoing in this initiative because, and now you're coming back to your question, this is also beneficial for us. I give you one example. Caroline touched a little bit the digital twin aspects. This is, of course, also in our digital enterprise offering one of the cornerstones. But when you are speaking about, let's say, simulation, modeling, mathematics, what is needed for this? For example, we enhanced our portfolio with some kind of spin-off from university startups. So we have a benefit out of this, and we have to do this because in this area, as a big company, you have the tendency to stay in the business as you is. And with startups, with new ideas, with new technology, you get also pushback into the topic to improve your, let's say, competitive for the future. So you have to establish, beside venture capital, also some kind of collaboration platform. You know, AI, data, and so on. I'm also in the European level heading this, one of these initiatives, the Big Data Value Association, because we have some benefit, but we have also to, let's say, to do this collaboration. And I'm with you, partially, Daria, room for improvement, but something is ongoing.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas, for that. And I'm going to come over to you,
Caroline. Thomas?
Daria, you can comment quickly, and then I'd like to come to Caroline for her response and for her question.
Thomas, definitely things are moving, and in many places, in many companies, in good direction. Yep. Now, to this extent, I should say that many companies, the first thing that they say is that they have all the systems in place. And I believe that these systems have been in place for quite a long time. And still things do not move at the pace of the global change. But let me finish here.
You are right. That's meaning we are on the way. That's the reason why I mentioned increase needed, or an improvement needed. Let's phrase it this way.
Okay.
As we know, there is always room for improvement. But to follow on from Thomas's description of how the larger corporates would leverage startups, I'd like to come back to you, Caroline, because conversely, obviously, I'd like to ask you, how can startups and young innovators reach out to large corporations to establish these kinds of collaborations?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can take now bring in the startup view, let's say. Well, I have been on both sides since I worked for Airbus for 7 years before I started my own company. So I'm aware of the large corporations and how they work. Well, what I learned and what is most important, I believe, is from a startup point of view, you need to propose to large corporations a solution which is with a very clear scope and a very clear benefit to them. It must perfectly fit their needs. And this also means you need to find the right person to reach out to. And as Thomas already said, in recent years, corporations set up innovation and venture teams. I know all the ones you mentioned, Thomas.
I can expect.
And well, they are responsible for bringing in new ideas and enabling startup collaboration. So that's very good. And it's a very good entry point for startups in order to get access to and to find the right people, actually. The only thing from my point of view, from my experience, and I agree with Daria here, even if you have a project with a large corporation, you need to handle different ways of working of startups and corporations. So, for example, prompt feedback can mean tomorrow, it can mean 2 weeks' time. Standard payment terms can mean 30 days or 3 months. And in projects, decision logs can mean to revise again in a week or to keep something irrevocable for the end of the project. And that's the differences that startups and corporations face. And to successfully cope with these challenges, startups have to adapt to their customers on the outside while keeping their flexibility and speed on the inside, I believe. And what is most important from a startup point of view, I think you need to maintain a healthy project pipeline to withstand the long time schedules of the customers of larger corporations. That's the biggest challenge, I think.
Thank you for enlightening on this. Now, I'd like to actually, there's a couple of questions coming in from the audience, so I'd like to actually jump to the question of skills, because obviously Daria mentioned changing skills and upskilling in her first remarks. What specific new skills will be required, obviously, for manufacturing to make these incredible transitions that we're talking about? Thomas, if you were to start studying right now, what kinds of things would you be focusing on?
Some of the areas are touched or addressed before. So for sure, everything about data. For sure, everything about ecosystem, or to make it much more precise, platform ecosystem. For sure, what new business models can arise out of this. For sure, all around artificial intelligence. Let's say when you're asking me from a perspective, because let's say the traditional elements, I think we are good prepared inside the companies. But when it's getting data, uses data, get benefit out of data, look what new business opportunities are, how we can share this, and what are ecosystems. You mentioned, somebody from you mentioned before, with B2C and B2B. And we know everything's a B2C dominant platforms. This is a platform business. And when you're looking inside, we have really to look how we transfer this knowledge about other mechanisms, because, you know, when we are trained to have a product or solution is good when we have a lot of features inside. But, you know, maybe Marshall van Alstem's words, he was written a book about platforms. You know, we have to look at what is the ecosystem, and to increase the ecosystem. So we have to transfer a little bit. That's the thinking. Also meaning data, AI, living in ecosystems, running ecosystem, looking what is platform business end to end. That's why we have to train our people. Besides the classical aspects, for sure, what is needed for the digitalization aspects, how is this implemented in the different domains, in the systems we're taking care for the accounting, in the development, and the sales system. I think that is well known, but maybe let's see if focus is really data usage, business model, platform ecosystems, new business opportunities, artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I'd like to just come back quickly to Daria, because when we spoke, obviously, before this panel, you mentioned just how crucial it would be for everyone to understand how much AI is going to be changing the workplace, changing manufacturing technologies, but also really very much the workplace. So perhaps you can just add your thoughts.
Absolutely. I should say that I'm a social scientist, and last year we went through an acceleration program as a startup. So I think with Caroline, we have some common DNA. And we've been working on this concept of platform, networks, ecosystem that have been resonating so much with our talk here. And we developed a measurement to measure network IQ skills. And the network IQ skills are really the skills that you need being connected to a platform, to a community, to a network, to create value, to lead transformation, whatever value is for you, depending if you're a university or a government or a business or a startup. But what is key is that our research shows that really the lowest level of competence is about designing the network strategy. So companies, big and small, universities and governments, people working in leadership roles, in middle-level management, they do not understand this complex network ecosystem around them. They do not understand why things change, how things change, and how they can influence the things change around them. So number one competence gap is the network strategy. Number two is the digital communication. And it may sound trivial because communication is something that we've been, utilizing all our our lives. But digital communication is today most critical than ever with the massive shift to remote work. We need to optimize remote teams virtually. And I observe many corporate clients who are totally paralyzed by the shift to remote work. It was a big element of serendipity, of friendship culture, of a kind of different way people were learning together, the spillovers, the innovation, sourcing ideas. Now with the remote work, it seems that everything is happening so fast. At the same time, people are overwhelmed. And I'm afraid that unless big organizations, whatever is a big organization, improves the digital communication skills, there will be a significant burnout effect and a lowering of team performance. And a third skill out of the 7 IQ skills is influence. And if you can be leader and influencer, the two things hardly go together. When you look at the manufacturing industry, that the traditional leader is someone with a deep technical expertise, highly respected, and this is all absolutely still needed. But to understand the platform economy and how those big companies and small companies need to network together, every leader needs to understand that she or he must be also a micro or macro influencer. And this all comes to having a digital brand, understanding the social networking sites, being able to virtually engage with partners, clients, colleagues foremost, employees within the company. It just requires a different, let me say it, skill set and mindset. So, and we've been actually doing research over this last year, looking into skill gaps, network IQ skill gaps of global science park managers, the population of the EIT KICs, the university scientists who want to commercialize technology. And there are some fascinating patterns emerging. So definitely with the remote shift to mass work, the platform economy, the network economy, all the types of network-based business models will depend on AI for sure, on 5G, on the city transformation, the system cities transformation that manufacturing is such a key component of. But I would not underestimate that the human element will not be eliminated. The human factor will be there. So we better get our skills up to this new digital economy with the old traditional business models.
Thank you very much, Daria, for that input there. And I'd like to get back to Maurizio just quickly to have his thoughts to round off this education. But Maurizio, if you could keep it short. Obviously, there's a lot of focus here on high-end skills, but there will be new challenges, obviously, even facing blue-collar occupations as digitalization drives all of these changes in traditional production that Daria was just talking about. So what upskilling measures need to happen, and where does education need to step in? Just quickly, please, because I've got one question that I'd like to answer from our participants.
Okay, let me go very quickly to the point. First, I have to say that unfortunately, the forecasts on the employment evolutions are really scary. Forecasts are from 5 to 15 million job losses. In some European countries, we have measures we have put in place to stop, but employment cannot only be granted by law. I make the example of Italy, where we have a stop to firing people up to end of March. But what will happen after that? And to avoid a huge impact, one of the key tools is the Next Generation EU Fund. And this must be used for upskilling, very largely, for new generation and old generation which are still active. IT manufacturing is doing a very important job on this because we never have to forget that the manufacturing must be first human-centered. And also, this has always been stressed also in all the strategic indication from EFRA and ManuFuture. Recently, we have published an open letter sent to the European commissioners, ministers of member states to stress the role of the manufacturing in green Europe of tomorrow, and the recommendations for the investment in the recovery plan Next Generation EU were mainly focused on upskilling. So we have to invest on that. We have to be able to bring the young generations, which are more skilled in digital tools, in the work environment. We don't have to forget we have 30% of unemployment, of young unemployment in south of Europe, of digital generations. So we have to invest on that because without the people, we cannot be at the far front of the economy and of the technology. So this is a very, very important and key point. I conclude here. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that very, very valuable input, Maurizio Gattiglio. And I'd like to come to Caroline Albert with, obviously we've got some questions from the floor, but we are running tight for time. I'd like to ask you, Caroline, there's a question here from Marc-Philippe Böckler, who, it's actually a two-part question, and I'm going to ask you the second half of it because I'm wondering if you have some thoughts. He would like to get some meaningful insights on the problem of greenwashing. You are obviously in the business of making manufacturing greener, but there's a lot of concern, obviously, amongst the public about greenwashing products such as electric vehicles, obviously with the batteries. What are your thoughts on this, and how does the manufacturing industry need to tackle this sort of perhaps breach of understanding and trust on the part of the citizens?
That's a good question, actually. Thanks for that. Well, I believe there's a huge need for education. That means education on new technologies. It also includes green manufacturing, for example. Let me take the example of AI, just to get back to this. If you think of the general public, when they think of AI, they're afraid that it will be uncontrollable by us humans, and it's actually, or taking the perspective of a manufacturer, many might be afraid that AI technologies or new technologies take away their jobs and might even be disappointed by their first project with AI and not bringing the benefit they expected. And I believe it's the same with greenwashing. You start projects and you don't have the full education, the full understanding what means green, what creates a green benefit. And I think we need a lot more understanding of this. I like to mention a nice example. A friend just recently told me about AI, where in a big German company, all departments were asked to hand in projects where they already used applied AI. And well, 70 projects were handed in, but it turned out that only 2 of them really used AI. And a big amount of those other projects were just Excel macros. And I believe it's the same in green manufacturing. You have a huge bunch of projects and a lot of companies telling us they do green manufacturing, but in the end, it's just a few of them where it's really showing off a benefit. And so what I mean is we need to educate the people much more on such new technologies, new concepts, how they work, when it makes sense to use them, and therefore we need much more reasonable use cases when such new methods, when such new concepts match a challenge. So coming back to this, there's an opportunity, and then actually show the benefit.
Thank you very much, Caroline Albert, for I think that's a great sort of point to end on. Obviously, transformation is an opportunity. That is where we began, but we've gone through a number of issues looking at how resilience can be process resilience as well, not just the traditional material resilience that we would think about, taking advantage of network intelligence, and that Europe itself actually needs to have the courage to be leading the pack. And obviously with the upskilling and the reskilling and the new skills that will be necessary for future endeavors in manufacturing. And obviously there is with the remote work platform economy and the influencing. So it was very good to get your insights from all of you on that. Thanks very much for joining us. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of our panelists, Caroline Albert, Thomas Hahn, Maurizio Gattiglio, and Daria Tatai joining us from Poland today. Thanks very much also to the audience for participating. It is time to wrap up our morning sessions here on this day one of the EIT Summit, Manufacturing Summit. Don't forget about the networking session. I've said it enough times. Obviously, everybody can have some lunch and then go back to visit the various project booths in the expo area this afternoon. We hope to see you here again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. sharp for the takeoff of day 2, and we'll have a lot more projects obviously that have been supported over this first year by EIT Manufacturing to showcase then. So until then, from all of us here in Berlin, the best to you, and stay safe, and thanks very much for your participation thus far. Take care.
Our ambition is to create a pan-European innovation community, working towards building a sustainable, competitive and entrepreneurial Europe. By 2027, we will improve the competitiveness and resiliency of Europe's manufacturing industry, exceeding over 16% of the continent's GDP. Make strides in environmentally sustainable manufacturing by reducing greenhouse emission in the sector by 25%. Help create 150 innovative manufacturing businesses fit for the digital age. Drive a powerful ecosystem by engaging over 300 active community members. And build competitive manufacturing skills by involving over 2,100 graduates in our programs. While our goals are ambitious, we are confident we can achieve them together. Manufacturing innovation led by Europe. #Manufacturing Impact.